Good afternoon. How are you today? It's nice out. It's about 70, I would think. Wind is very still. Sunlight's good. So we continue the saga. Today's kind of a slow news day, in my opinion. Others may disagree. But there are a couple of things that caught my attention. One is Rudy Giuliani coming forth. And the thing that's a little striking to me is I hear him speaking with the voice of that lawyer that I knew so long ago, saying things that don't match up with the integrity he had when he said these things when he was younger. So, for example, he talks about the Georgia prosecution, of which he is a named defendant. And he's second in the number of counts to only one other person, Trump. And he is quarreling with the use of the RICO statute, a statute in Georgia, which was not the one that Rudy worked with, by the way. But let me back up a minute. He's charged in RICO, and what it is conspiracy to commit crimes, and the acts in furtherance of that conspiracy are certain acts that are identified for the purpose of committing a RICO act, which means racketeer influence corrupt organization. So Rudy comes on the air and he says, I know about RICO. I was the one who used it. There are very few people who know it better than I, some probably as good. And I'm paraphrasing, but that's pretty close. But the exact words that he said on the point that I want to make is that he said, and can you imagine using RICO in an election dispute? You have to listen to these guys carefully. This is not an election dispute. This is an election crime. This is interference with an election. This is an effort to overcome the government, to overthrow it. This is what dictators do. It's sort of like we have free speech to overthrow our government. And I said that the other evening on Ari's show. You have to consider the entire context that you're talking about. So, do you think you can go into places and take the voter rolls and take it out and then use it and manipulate it? Do you think you can slander workers saying things about them that are crimes that are not true? Is that just an election dispute? Do you think you can ask the Secretary of State of the state to give you 10,000 votes plus one so that you can win the election? Is that an election dispute or is that an election crime? And don't you think that when there's a conspiracy to do that, that's a special conspiracy? Like, say, oh yeah, RICO, Racketeer Influence Corrupt Organization. Just you and 18 of your best buddies and 30 unindicted co-conspirators. I think that that's an argument that's not going very far. And so Rudy, perhaps, as a defense counsel, should be arrested for impersonating a defense counsel. I've said this before, so I apologize to those who heard me say it. So there's that. RICO, Rudy, somewhat desperate. And then there was going to be, on Monday, a press conference by Trump telling us all the down and dirty, the real truth. Why there's nothing to this case. Well, that's a great thought, and I'm willing to listen to it. But I think his lawyers called it off because it just didn't work. And of course, like everybody else, I'd be curious to see what he said because I'm sure it's a lie. And the beauty of it is not just that it's a lie, but that there's evidence that allows us to contradict it to prove that it's a lie. The Republican primary debate is next Wednesday. I'm telling you on Saturday. And so on next Wednesday, all those who want to replace Trump as the standard bearer of the Republican Party are going to be on a stage. But the fella who claims to have the lead is not going to show up, or so he said. I think he can change his mind until Monday. But we've seen this before. I'm going to talk. I'll be there. No, I'm not going to do it. I don't do it. I'm going to take the fifth instead. So no, he's not going to be on the debate stage, probably. But what's he going to do? Counter programming. I am going to be on with Tucker Carlson. Except Tucker Carlson has said he's not interviewing him this week. But then the answer is, well, we taped the interview already, and it doesn't matter where Tucker is because it's already in the can. We just play it. So who's going to watch what on Wednesday? Well, the answer is, in this day and age, you don't have to choose. People may tape both and see neither, and then every other permutation you can think of. And Tucker Carlson, this is kind of ironic. This is the guy that hates him. They talk about strange bedfellows. This is an S&M exercise, a political S&M exercise. Hurt the other guy, hurt yourself. And I think maybe it'll help Tucker stay off Fox News or any other network, so-called news show, faux news as they call it. So there's that. We have different ways of dealing with this. The way I see the future going as to Trump is there are two avenues that are now more generally accepted. One is you can indict him, and there are now 4 indictments against Trump when there's never been in our history any indictments ever against any other president or former president. The closest, I think, was the prosecution for Aaron Burr for being a traitor. And that was a mishigas that didn't really sort itself out very well. But this one, all hands on deck. So one path is this guy gets crushed under the force of 4 prosecutions. I think the Georgia one alone has taken him to a very different place because we've laid out the table of who's present, who's doing what, to whom, and with what consequence. And so the prosecutor, who is now the subject of much harassment and coercion and so forth, and as are the people who were in the grand jury and so forth, and the FBI is now investigating the matter, and I hope they actually investigate it instead of, well, doing what they do in some cases, which is nothing. When you consider they did nothing for 2 years when Trump tried to overthrow the government. Do we think they're going to care about potential assaults and threats to people? I don't know. I would think we'd do better with Georgia officials than the FBI. Doesn't the FBI come in and exclude everybody? Clear the room. We're going to take this over and screw it up. So when the FBI started doing drug cases and they were going to do undercover, several agents that I was with, we were talking about it. And I said, they're going to take off their tie when they go undercover so it won't show. And then there was a big, very white American who joked about how if they sent him up to Harlem, he put a radio on his shoulder, and he didn't expect there'd be a lot of people who wanted to do smoke, coke, heroin with him. So I have never had a high regard for the FBI, and it hasn't changed. And our ability to choose good heads of the FBI, well, that lingers, right? I mean, the present guy was appointed by a Republican, and we wonder why nothing happens over there. It's amazing. So one way to go forward are the prosecutions. What's the second way? The second way is that we beat the living daylights out of them at the ballot box. And I think whatever happens in the Republican primary, that's a very likely result, I think, in the general election, that we will beat him, including whatever dances and peculiar things he tries to do with the electors in the battleground states, about 7, I guess. So, but what is the one that's not explored? which is the most controversial and the clearest as a matter of law, is found in our Constitution in Article 14, Section 3, which basically provides that any person who's taken an oath to uphold the Constitution and the nation, who then participates in an insurrection or any effort to overthrow the government, is barred, like forever, from holding public office, including the presidency. Well, Trump's made it. He's made the hit parade. Now, some people say, so how do you enforce that? I wrote an op-ed in the beginning of 2022, and I laid out what I thought. And there have been cases since then that have sort of fizzled. They were brought against, like Green, for example, Congresswoman Green, for what she did. And I have no idea what happened to it, but I think it got dismissed. Wrongly, in my opinion, if that's what happened. And there's a recent article in The Atlantic, which is a terrific article, and you should read it, or read the thing I posted on Twitter. And this would tell Trump when he shows up for work, no, you're not welcome. Now, some people say, how can you do that? Well, we have requirements for everything we do. You know, you want to drive a car, we'd like to see if you can drive a car. If you want to run for president, you better be 35. And if you want to be president and you supported an insurrection of our own country, even though it's modeled after how we were going to solve these problems after the Civil War, well, you're not accepted. So it's a situation that occurs, and then you bar the door, and then the candidate, goes to court. Now, there are a bunch of strategies to do this. One would be go to every state in the union and seek to have him barred from appearing on the ballot. You could do that. And some say, well, they got these Republican states. Well, this is where the tricky political business. There are, 20 or 18 states that probably would all admit to this. So there are 3 avenues to saving the nation from another Trump run round. One is you beat him in the polls. 2 is you beat him in a courtroom. 3, you invoke the Constitution that was made just for this and say, sorry, fella, you were barred. That's the way I see it today. And I think things are going to get crazier the more desperate Trump's team gets. And the increased violence, particularly in Georgia, I think tells us a lot about how much they fear Georgia. And that's not going to go away. So you have you have the prosecutor under threat, you have the people in the jury under threat, she has her staff under threat. You know, it's just outrageous. I don't know if there are charges to hurt the judge who's going to try the case. And in D.C., we have Judge Chutkan, and, they've been attacking her, and they've been threatening other people. And so I think I'm thinking of Jack Smith. He has an entourage that costs us taxpayers $1.9 million. Glad to pay it. But damn it, go prosecute these people. Don't let this stuff happen. Somebody put up something, get them. Get them. This is the electronic age. You have no way of knowing where they are. Are you looking the other way? Come on, let's get on it. Let's do it. So the federal judge, Chutkan, is in court on the 28th of this month. I'm actually before next week on the 22nd in a separate case, obviously, involving a criminal case and a possible appeal and so forth. So, and we will not be talking about this case. But if she brings it up, I'd be glad to talk about it. So here we are in my cathedral of trees as we enter another phase of chaos that is going our way, and the madding crowd is desperate to find a way to stop it, to prevent the inevitable, in my opinion. And I believe it's really only a question of time before Trump fails. And I'm talking about primaries, court battles, withdrawal from the election, whatever. Will he ever make a deal? I don't think so. Will he run? He'd want to make it look like something else. He wouldn't want us to know he really is a coward. So I say goodbye to you from my Cathedral of Trees, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.